today's amp now, the Epiphone, you remember our rules for draining capacitors before you ever get inside the amp. You don't want to touch anything until you're sure these caps aren't storing a charge on you. And you remember the normal rule that we explained in Tube Amps 101, that all you have to do is put a jumper clip on the first pin of a preamp tube and to ground. Leave the amp in standby and give it a few minutes and it'll discharge the capacitors. On this particular amp, the first preamp tube is a 6EU7, and pin 1 on a 6EU7 is a heater pin. So it really wouldn't do you any good to drain the caps that way with that style of tube. So what we're going to do today is show you how to make another jumper using your basic jumper cable and a 470 ohm 1 watt resistor. We're going to make that, and that's how we're going to drain the capacitors on this amp. And it's something you can use anytime you're not sure or you want to double check to make sure that the voltages are drained. You can use this and you can double check it with your voltmeter if you care to. But what we're going to do basically is cut in the middle of this cable. We're going to cut this wire in half. We're going to put the 470 ohm resistor in between it, cover it in a little shrink wrap, and that'll help keep it from sparking whenever you touch anything. You won't get the big arc flash. It'll kind of, that's what the resistor does, is keep that from scaring you out of your wits, I hope. And so I'm going to make that. I'll get right back to you. Remember, we're just going to cut this in half, put the resistor in between, solder it in there, cover it with some shrink wrap, and we'll have our capacitor voltage discharge unit here. And we'll go about using it here in a second, right after I make this up. And we're ready to go. So now, how do we use it? Well, with a connector like this, you want to always put one end to ground first. So we're going to clip one end to the chassis. Okay? So we've always got ground. And in my case, rather than touch things to it like that, I like to clip then. You recognize our little chopstick, and we've been eating Chinese. I like to put the clip on the end of a chopstick like this. And then if I want to start testing, all I have to do is find the positive end of any cap, put one hand behind my back, and touch the positive end. Got nothing there. No sparks, no problems. Should be drained. Here's another cap, right? Positive lead for a cap. We're going to touch it right there. Don't see anything there. Let's try some of these bigger ones over here. We'll follow that red lead. That seems okay. We've got a red lead over here to another cap. Now here's the positive side of these, which I find interesting because positive side of these caps goes to the negative side of this cap. It's pretty interesting. Okay, now for safety's sake, what we would normally do then is we'll want to clip this to one of these rows of caps to make sure that the caps don't build up a charge while we're working on the amp. But now we've touched all of those things, let's take our meter and make sure. This is another good way for you to determine if you've got all the voltage out of the caps. So we're going to ground one lead of our meter, and then we're going to go back to these same points again in the DC volt setting and see what we've got. Here we've got 8 millivolts. On this lead we've got 8 millivolts. Let's check a few more here. 9 millivolts. 9. Nothing there. Nothing the other way. So now we're positive there's no voltage buildup in this amp, and we can get to work on it. Use this procedure on any amp you're unsure of. Use it every time. These voltages can be high enough to really hurt you, and as you hear, some people say even kill you, so be very careful. Use this method or the method we describe in Tube Amps 101 on every amp every time before you put your hands in there. And if during your servicing you have to plug the amp in to check things, make sure you drain it again when you go back in to test the amp.